Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. The song came on the radio the other day, and it's this Rolling Stones song. And I used to love this song when I was a teenager. It's called Paint It Black. You guys ever hear Paint It Black by the Rolling Stones? When you're a teenager, you're just mad about everything, mad about the world. And, my life's so miserable. And this song, Paint It Black, used to come on when I was a teenager, and I'd roll down the windows, drive down Grand River, and just scream it out. And it's all about how miserable your life is. The lyrics, one of the lyrics that really spoke to me was, I look inside myself and see my heart is black. I see my red door and I want it painted black. Maybe then I'll fade away and not have to face the facts. It's not easy facing up when your whole world is black. And I would sing this as a teenager and be like, yeah, my heart is black and nobody understands. You guys know that song, Paint It Black? That's like candy to an angsty teen, they just eat it right up. So the song came on the radio the other week, and I was playing it for my kids. I was like, I used to listen to this song, and they're like, what in the world is this? No, this isn't the worship music that Mom plays for us. But it speaks to something inside of us. We look inside our hearts and see it painted black. And I think it really does speak to people, because we recognize, I've got issues. We recognize there's things inside of us. I have tendencies that I'm kind of ashamed of. There's thoughts that I have that really I would be terribly embarrassed if you were to put them up on the screens. I have anger issues. I look inside my heart and I see I'm stressed all the time. I deal with anxiety. I have addictions. I'm hooked on these things. I can't stop going to these websites. I have these lusts, these attractions that I'm just so ashamed of. And so we say, well, the goal is make sure nobody sees that stuff. Make sure that it's painted over. We don't want these things leaking out anytime. And so, but we do. We look inside our hearts and we see, it's black. We see it painted black. And then Jesus comes along and he says, Jesus was before the Rolling Stones, but Jesus says, blessed are the pure in heart. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. And then we look around and we think, I'm just glad no one else sees what I see. I pure in heart, I just am trying to show everyone else that I really don't have the issues that I'm struggling with. And we hope that no one else sees it. We hope that this thing that's inside of us doesn't leak out somewhere and somebody can pick up on it. And so we spend all our time trying to hide it. Well, I hate to burst your bubble today, but like the video said, God can see it. God does see the heart. He looks inside your heart and he sees those things that we're ashamed of. And that may be a scary moment for us. But Jesus is so concerned with the heart. Why is he so concerned with the heart? Isn't that interesting? Jesus was constantly battling with this group of people called the Pharisees. The Pharisees were maybe the religious elite of the day. They were like the top church folks. They spent all their time following all the rules and doing everything right and making sure everybody knows how well they follow the rules and knows how often they go to the synagogues and knows how often they pray. But they seem like they have everything together. They follow all the rules to a T. But when Jesus shows up on the scene, he's not going out and like berating and yelling at the sinners, the people he would think that Jesus would be yelling at. Jesus usually has to confront these Pharisees, these religious people, these church people. Jesus says in Matthew 23 something very interesting. Here's Jesus concerned with the heart. He says, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but on the inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way, on the outside you appear to people as righteous, but on the inside you are full of hypocrisy and wickedness." He continues, "Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will also be clean." So here's Jesus, who shows up on the scene, and he's got religion. There's church. Jesus didn't invent any of that stuff. These people are doing it, but he's saying, you're focusing on the wrong thing. You're focusing on the outside when really it's the inside you need to focus on. He calls them whitewashed tombs. Here's a tomb that looks really nice on the outside, but on the inside, it's full of dead bones. And in the Jewish culture, that would be seen as like an unclean thing. You're not supposed to touch dead things. He's saying that's what you're like in the inside. What's the point of you cleaning up the outside if that's what the inside looks like? Jesus is concerned with the heart because he knows that the heart is the main problem. That's the main problem we need to concentrate on. Not painting over that spot that shows up every so often. It's the heart. When you go in to change your oil, you're supposed to change the oil in your car. Just so you guys know. You're supposed to do this every so often. And you have arguments about how often you're supposed to do it, but everybody agrees you're supposed to do it. Now, if you were to go in to change your oil, and all you did, well, there's two things that happen when you go in to change your oil. You get new oil, and they put a new filter in, or you put a new filter in. You can tell that I don't change my own oil. If you just went in and put new oil in every time, you drain the old oil out, put new oil in, and you never ever changed the filter, it really wouldn't matter that you're going and putting nice clean oil in because the filter's all gunked up. If your filter's all gunked up, then bad things are going to happen. You're going to overheat. Something's going to happen to your car. Our heart is like that filter. If our heart is dirty, if our heart is gunked up, if there's things in there that are messed up and need changing, then it's going to affect everything else. If our heart's dirty, then our whole lives are going to be dirty. I love this story, and maybe it's an April Fool's story. April Fool's was yesterday. But this story of this grandpa who's sleeping on the sofa, and his two grandkids want to play a prank on him, so they get some Limburger cheese from the refrigerator. And it has to be Limburger because Limburger is a really smelly cheese. And they go up to the grandpa and they rub Limburger cheese all on his mustache. And they wake up the grandpa, and grandpa wakes up, and he gets up off the couch, and he goes, oh boy, this room stinks. Something smells terrible in this room. So he goes to the kitchen to try to get away from it, and he gets into the kitchen. He goes, oh, the kitchen stinks. What's wrong with this place? And he runs into his bedroom and smells, oh, the bedroom stinks. He says, this whole house stinks. And he runs out the door, and he opens the door just to get a fresh breath, and he takes a deep breath in, and he says, oh, the whole world stinks. The moral of the story is, the whole world stinks when you have Limburger cheese in your mustache. When your heart is black, when your heart is dirty, the whole world is black. When there's something wrong with the filter, when there's something wrong with the source, then everything else gets affected. We try to blame our faults and our stress and our sins and all these things that go wrong. We try to blame our miserable life on everything else, the circumstances that we're in or what they said to us or all this stuff. But Jesus said, no, you know what? It's the heart. That's the issue. It's the heart is the important thing. So we like to think, or the world likes to say, if you have bad things happening or if you have to get your act together, what you really need is a change of circumstances. But really what Jesus is saying is, whether the circumstances in your life are good or whether they're bad, if you've got a bad heart, if your heart is black, if something's wrong with your heart, everything's going to come out bad. So the world will say, well, you just need to change your circumstances. Well, no. If you've got good circumstances and you filter it through a black heart or a bad heart, it's going to come out bad. It doesn't matter the circumstances. You can sit there and think, I just need to change the circumstances, but it's not that needs changing. But Jesus says, we need a pure heart. And then it doesn't matter the circumstances are good or bad. If it's filtered through the pure heart, everything comes out good. So the world will say, it's the circumstances we need to concentrate. You need to get better circumstances. You need to get a better job. You need to get a better spouse. That's all you really need. You just need to, whatever's stressing you out in your life, really you just need to change that thing and then you'll be fine. Jesus is saying, no, it's the heart that needs to be changed. What's interesting is the religious people will say, the Pharisees and some church people will say, really what you need to change is your actions. The thing on the right. Really what you need to change is you just change your actions and everything else will be fine. Well, wait a second. It's not the circumstances that need to change, and it's not really even our actions that need to change. That's what the Pharisees thought. Jesus said it's your heart that needs to change. Because when your heart is changed, then everything else will follow from that. But the circumstances aren't going to matter. If you're a stressful person, and you're counting on your circumstances to change, to not be stressed anymore, guess what? It's not going to happen. If you're a stressful person, things could be totally fine, and you're still going to be a stressful person. You're still going to deal with anxiety. And you think, oh, shoot, I was hoping for my circumstances to change. No, if that's what you're dealing with, that's not going to change based on your circumstances. It's your heart that needs to change. We don't need a change in circumstances. We don't need a change in things that happen to us. That's the world's way. We don't even need a change in actions. That's the religious way or the Pharisees' way. We need a change in heart. Jesus says in it's Mark chapter 7. Actually, he says this in Matthew 2. Mark chapter 7, verse 14 through 15. Jesus called the crowd to him and said, so here's Jesus, and he's calling the crowd to him, and he says, listen to me, everyone, and understand this. It's like I can picture Jesus saying, listen, guys, you got to get this. Maybe Jesus is pinching, maybe he's stressed. All right, guys, listen, you need to understand this. Nothing outside a person can defile them by going into them. Rather, it is what comes out of a person that defiles them. You listen and understand this. It's not what you put in. It's not the type of food you're eating. It's not even the shows you watch. It's not the rituals that you do. It's not the circumstances that you're in that's going to make you unclean. Rather, it's what's coming out of your heart that makes you unclean. That's the thing we need to worry about. You could be the most holy looking person in the world. You could abstain from every single thing. You could cloister yourself up in a little monastery. And Jesus says, it doesn't matter if you're just holy looking. It's about the heart. You can't escape your way into holiness. It's said that sometimes Christians can be the most unloving and the most really hate-filled people in the world. And you ask the Christians, well, where is this coming from? And they say, well, it's this, and it's them, and it's that, and it's this, and oh, back in my day, and this, and that, and that. And it's like, well, no, it's not coming from any of that stuff. It's coming from in here. It doesn't matter if you're a Christian or not. It's the heart that matters. We need a change of heart. But how do we do this? When we try to attempt to be pure in heart, when we try to attempt having purity of heart, what ends up happening inevitably is we end up looking like Pharisees. And have you ever noticed this? Think about what it would mean for you if I said, hey, you need to be holy, be pure. What comes to your mind? What actions do you come to your mind do you need to take so you could be holy? Maybe you think, well, I should probably stop swearing. I do that too much. Or maybe you think, I should volunteer more at the church. Maybe you think, I should stop thinking these thoughts. I should stop being rude. But whatever you end up thinking in your quest to be pure, really you end up looking like Pharisees. I mean, that's all the things that the Pharisees say, the Pharisees wanted to do. If that's all it means to be holy, is I better stop this, I better stop this, I better stop this, I better do this and cloister myself away, then our goal isn't looking like Jesus, our goal is looking like a Pharisee. And that's not right. That's not the right view of holiness. That's not the right view of purity. That's the technique of just painting over the spot on the wall. When you just try to change your actions, that's the technique of just ignoring the real problem. And it seems like it works for a bit. When maybe you get in the same argument with your spouse. You've had the same argument 100 times. You've been married for 100 years, it feels like. And you get in this argument, and then and maybe you say, okay, yeah, we need to do better. And then things are fixed for maybe a day. Maybe your husband brings flowers the next day, and you think, oh, this isn't going to be, okay, maybe this will work out. And then the next day, nothing kind of happens, and then the third day, and then the fourth day, it's the same thing. And it's like, well, what happened here? And we do the same thing with our life. It's the same. You struggle with this thing, and you think it's good for a bit, but then all of a sudden, the spot shows up again, and you think, well, I guess the problem wasn't really addressed. We need to fix the heart, but how do we do it when everything we try just ends up it just ends up changing our actions and not the inside? How do we clean the inside, like Jesus said? Jesus says something interesting. He says, "Blessed are the pure in heart." And we'll talk about what that means and how to get that in a second. But blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God, because they will see God. I think that's interesting, because seeing God in the Bible has two meanings. And I think Jesus means both here. First, it's the obvious meaning of you're going to see God, when you die. You're going to see him. You're going to meet him. And I think Jesus definitely means that. But also the Bible talks about seeing God. It means experiencing God now, not physically, but you see God's hand moving. You see God at work. And I think Jesus means both those things. Those who are pure in heart will see God move in their life. Will be able to see God work in their life. They'll be able to see God moving and working in things. Because God is always working, just we don't recognize it all the time. We don't see it all the time. Jesus says, the pure in heart do, though. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. People can experience the same event, the same circumstances, and come to vastly different conclusions.